Welcome to the Realizations Podcast. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and I'm excited to explore the world of real estate with you. In a world where perceptions often overshadow reality, Realizations seeks to redefine what it means to be a realtor. Join me as we peel back the layers of the industry, uncovering inspiring stories and celebrating the good in real estate. Whether you're a homeowner, a fellow realtor, or simply curious, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Realizations, where perceptions meet reality. Let's dive right in. Welcome, everyone, to the Realizations Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Gordon, and I'm really excited today because I'm here with Jarred Talmadge. He's going to talk to us about what he has done in his book about LinkedIn marketing. He's about to show it to us. There we go, the LinkedIn Real Estate Agent.
Yes.
So hello, Jarred. So please
Hello.
tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got to the point where you wrote a book about real estate.
So I was actually in the mortgage business for 30 years. Um, I've been through it all. I've worked for banks and brokers and owned companies and worked in a bunch of different fields. And during this time, about 15 years ago, maybe now, I started teaching social media to real estate agents. Um, And one of the things, and when it first came out, I was teaching Facebook, and then I was teaching LinkedIn, and so I had been teaching this for actually for a very long time. I had actually stopped for a while after I'd left the industry to do some other things for a while, and I ran a marketing company, and I would just keep teaching social media, LinkedIn, that kind of thing. And so then I had stopped that about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was at a breakfast meeting with a real estate agent friend of mine, and he said to me one day, he goes, I'm thinking about advertising on Facebook. What do you think? And I said, yeah, why? And he says, well, I'm thinking about doing this and this and this. And I said, okay, but that's great and that's very expensive. Um, the reality of it is you're probably better off doing LinkedIn because that way you're dealing more with straight professionals. And he said to me, he goes, what do you know? He's like, if you know so much, what do you know? And I said, well, I used to teach it and I did this and did this. And I started telling him about it. And he says, oh, okay, great. Come teach a class. So 2 weeks later, I was teaching a class again. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. I know this stuff. Um, but I was at a point last year where I was like, I was doing the class and I was like, what I really need is I need something to give people so that, because when they take a class, you take a class, it's like 2 hours long. And then at the end of the day, you can't remember half the things you learned. And so this way I said, well, if I write all this down, um, maybe it'll have some kind of impact. Maybe I'll be able to just give it away or I'll put it up for sale, whatever it was. And so I wrote the LinkedIn Real Estate. This is actually what this is actually is one of my classes written into a written form. And then about 6 weeks after I published it, Inman picked it up and said, this is one of the greatest business books for real estate agents we've ever seen, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, this is great. And then they forgot to tell me. So I didn't find out for like 3 months. I saw my book sales going up, but I couldn't figure out why. I was like, well, something's happened. Somebody picked it up. But the point was, what I would do is I would talk to real estate agents, and especially when I was talking to my friend, I realized that there was no basis under which people actually knew how to do it because everybody was under the perception that, well, LinkedIn is just a site to get a job or it's like a business networking site. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys are real estate agents. This is like the place you should be to help you build business without having to be, outdoor knocking or cold calling or, whatever it
Dancing on
is.
TikTok.
Yes. Because not everybody, I mean, let's face it, not everybody wants to be on camera. Not everybody wants to be a social media star. But if you have the availability to create your profile, your reputation online, why wouldn't you take it? Especially since now LinkedIn is literally so integrated into Google that you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not, because I mean, we live in the age of Amazon and everything gets delivered, which means what, right? Like you buy a toothbrush on Amazon for like $3, you'll read the descriptions of like the reviews and stuff.
Yeah.
If you think somebody's going to do that for a $3 item, what do you think they're going to do if they want to spend thousands of dollars with you to buy their next house?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so that's where the classes and that's where the book came from.
Well, very, very cool. Um, I love that. I don't think people realize how much real estate agents are dependent upon online advertising for a variety of different things.
Right. Right.
I have a whole marketing team called Agent Upgrade who are fantastic, and they put me on to all of the different platforms. And I'm very clear on where I'm political is on my personal stuff, where I'm not is on my business stuff. LinkedIn is a great resource, and I think that people don't utilize it enough, and especially since now Facebook and Instagram, because it's owned by the same company, are not fact checking, not doing, so just in terms of your own politics on some level, LinkedIn is a safer place to be.
Yeah.
And there, what do you think about some of these newer places like Substack or Blue Sky or X?
It's funny. It used to be back in the day that before it became X and when it was Twitter, I never understood, I never understood the point of Twitter in the first place. I always found it to be a really interesting platform because it was the way you could directly communicate with a company. And so if you wanted to do something and say the company wasn't treating you well, it was a great way to have it almost an instant impact because you could get in a fight with a company and say, okay, if you don't help me do something, which they should be doing anyway, you could post on Twitter and all of a sudden, blam, it's out to millions of people. And then all of a sudden it was like the great equalizer. And then of course it went, it kind of got sold and it went downhill. And now there's Blue Sky. And I have yet to do a Twitter account. I have yet to do a Blue Sky account. Why? Just because I look at it and go, my opinion is rather unique amongst social media types because technically I'm a LinkedIn instructor,
Hmm.
but I look at it and say, there's 100 million users on LinkedIn right now in just the United States. If I captured 1,000th of 1%,
Oh.
um, I would have more business to do for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
Why do I need to go out past that? And that's the thing that I tell people is like, look, if you have time to be on five, six, seven different platforms, go ahead and do it. It's not going to hurt you.
Right.
But I always tell people pick one platform and go with that. Become an expert at that platform first and see how it does. And you'll know immediately if it means that you're going to need to go further than that.
Mhm.
Um, and so social media is always evolving. It's just a matter of, what's it's kind of like flavors of ice cream. You may sit there and go, I like mint chip. I don't like pistachio. Does that mean pistachio is any less? Well, if you put that out on the internet, I guarantee you're going to get people on opinions on both sides and you'll be
Right.
accused of being biased against pistachio ice cream. And it's like, no, it's not a bias. It's just not what I do. It's just not the thing. And so when you kind of break it into that ice cream scenario, then people kind of understand. It's like, oh, it's just another flavor.
Right.
And some
Right.
people will like it and some people won't. And some people say, well, I don't really want to be on LinkedIn. Okay, don't be on LinkedIn. Or other people like, I don't want to be
I
on
can't
Facebook.
imagine why anyone would not want to be on LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn, I have, you probably looked me up, I'm going to guess. I have thousands of people on
Yep,
LinkedIn,
yep,
and I have people from all different walks of life, and I have people that are bazillionaires and people that are car mechanics on there. I look very carefully before put somebody into my sphere on LinkedIn because I don't want, to be getting sold stuff, and I don't want to be
right,
um and I don't want to be getting involved with people whose politics or whose ideas are so far away from mine that I can't deal with them. But at
right,
the same time, I think it's a great network because you're meeting people that are successful in business. Why wouldn't, I mean, people can't buy houses unless they're successful in business or they've inherited a bunch of money from mommy and
right,
daddy. So,
right.
so
Well,
why not go
I
there?
I tell people this, and this is how I describe this when I teach a class. LinkedIn is very simply put, LinkedIn is the greatest business database the world has ever seen. It's
Hmm.
the most complete. You
Hmm.
are 3 steps pretty much from anybody you want. And
Hmm.
I tell people this because I want them to understand kind of like I've talked to New York Times bestselling authors. I've talked to writers. I've talked to TV personalities. I've had conversations with people and I've done business with people on LinkedIn. The first one of some of the first classes I did on LinkedIn were because I met a guy who was based in Las Vegas and we worked with a audio guy out of Chicago and that was 10 years ago and I never actually physically met them in person
Right.
but here we are, you know.
Absolutely. No, I've data mined through LinkedIn. I'm an inveterate animal rescuer, and my charity of choice is the Berkeley Humane Society, and I've data mined to find potential donors for them because they're attempting to build a facility. I've also one of my good friends now is somebody that I met through LinkedIn because he questioned something that I wrote, and I responded to him, and he was really brilliant, and we ended up talking back and forth. It turned out he lived in the Bay Area and was a journalist,
There
and
you go.
now we're collaborating on a television series. So I'm a firm believer in LinkedIn. Now, can you give us an outline of your book? How does someone start? Let's say that somebody's a baby real estate agent and they're not on social media. And so they don't have a bunch of followers and they don't have a bunch of things they can tout. What would be the way for somebody like that to utilize LinkedIn?
So I would start in that situation if somebody's starting cold. First off, obviously you have to establish an account. That's pretty much how everything happens with social media. And then it used to be that you could just go on your phone, you could open up your app and you'd hit, connections, and it literally import your app from your app and your connections on your phone. It would start connecting to people. Well, LinkedIn stopped doing that, I think, last year. And so what I do is generally I say, if you've never done this before, the first thing you want to do is your goal is to get to 500 connections, because anything when you're looking at, once you get to that 501st connection, then it says 500 plus connections. The best way to be taken seriously on LinkedIn is you have to start with those connections. And so I tell people, look, don't focus so much on the volume of it so much as focus on the people that you know, because you will start with the people that you know best, that you say, okay, I can go do this and I can go look them up. So that means coworkers that you worked with, people you worked with prior, clients you've had, anybody that, like, think of it this way. When you talk about real estate agents, first thing everybody talks about is, well, who's your sphere of influence? This is your sphere of influence. So start with those people. And the first piece I will tell you is when you start connecting to people on LinkedIn, you hit the connect button and it'll tell you, pop up, and it says, do you want to put in a message? The answer is always yes, because if I send you a message and you and I don't know each other and I don't say anything to you, your response is going to be, well, I don't know this person. I'm going to hit the no, I don't want to connect, and no, I don't know this person. But if you actually take some of the characters and say, look, let me tell you who I am, or whatever, even if it's just, hey, Bob, thought you might want to connect on LinkedIn, at least show that you've taken some level of initiative to
Right,
do something
right,
beyond the minimum.
right.
So start with that.
By the way, I want you guys to listen to that. Just say that phrase again
Which part?
about doing something beyond the
Oh,
minimum.
do something beyond the minimums. Because here's the thing, and I'll give you an example of this that I did this morning. Okay. I have something like, I have 16, 1,800, something like that. I don't know. I got about 2,000, whatever it is, 2,000 connections. I get, you get these things every time you log on to LinkedIn. In the morning, it'll tell you so and so has a work anniversary, so and so has a birthday. One of the most effective marketing tools I've ever done
Hmm.
is I actually teach my clients, and I teach the people that I work with, how to send a message in LinkedIn and use people's, what I call, the birthday method.
Hmm.
Everybody says, "Oh, well, so and so had a birthday. Great." Well, they hit the button and it pops up and it prefixes happy birthday, and then you hit send and you're done. Well, how impersonal is that?
Hmm.
Right? There's nothing personal about that. It's just like, oh yeah, I saw it. It said your birthday's today, happy birthday, and who cares? What I do is I actually go in and I actually use LinkedIn, and I'll record a video message to that person and send it to him and say, hey, I would, the truth is, I tell people, I'm like, look, I could sing to you if it's your birthday, but that's going to embarrass both of us, because you're going to open this thing and hear me singing. You don't really want to hear me sing, and I don't really want to do it. Um, but when you approach it as being human, all of a sudden it changes things, and it's like, oh, okay. And so I sent a happy birthday thing to somebody I know who was on LinkedIn this morning, and I got this email back from them. They're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Nobody's ever done this for me before. And the funny thing was, he was like, first off, I want to know how you did it, because it's not typical. And in two, and he's like, I'm so impressed that you just actually thought of me to do this. And it's like, Yeah, but again, business comes down to relationships. And the thing that I tell people about relationships, and especially with LinkedIn, is connecting is the beginning, not the end.
Right. Right, right. And I do that too on Facebook, not on LinkedIn, but on Facebook, I every time I have the opportunity to wish somebody a happy birthday, I do. And
Right.
those are your colleagues for the most part.
Mhm.
They're your sphere and your colleagues. And it's good to really build relationships with potential colleagues too,
Right.
as well as
Right.
people that you don't know on LinkedIn.
Well, and the thing is, when you're think about it this way, if it's your birthday, right? Ultimately, this is like the ultimate thing that's all about you.
Hmm.
And so when somebody comes in and says, "Oh, by the way, happy birthday," and it's not some generic thing that they just like, I mean, it's like it's the equivalent. We're old enough, I can say this. It's the equivalent of buying a Hallmark card, sending it, and not freaking signing it. It's like, great, I have my return address on here and I have your name. And, if I sent my best friend that and I sent it to him and I didn't sign it, what does that say about me? Now, let's take that outside of the realm of the best friend thing and just say, if you sent it to anybody and then you didn't sign it, why are you actually making impact? Or are you actually having worse of an impact by sending it and saying, "Oh, I'm just going through my thing," and you're just a check mark on a box? Whereas you have an opportunity to start building a relationship with somebody immediately.
Hmm.
And of course, real estate being all about the relationship, it's something very simple you can do. It doesn't cost anything and it takes you, what, 30 seconds? But
Right.
that difference between that 30 seconds of that person feeling remembered versus not is invaluable.
And I'm always telling people that they should do the same thing with their past clients
Yes.
and what have you, but not just on LinkedIn. It's an important thing because when people feel like you care about them, they're going to care about you. It's a
Yep.
reciprocal thing.
Yep.
So this is really good. What else should do you want to talk to us about LinkedIn that we haven't hit?
So here's the thing about LinkedIn. A lot of people will assume that LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a business platform, they assume that that means that they should just go ahead and sell everybody everything all the time.
Hmm.
It's a misnomer. It doesn't work. And one of the biggest things that I can tell you about LinkedIn is first, I'm gonna break this up into two sections. So the first thing is spend some time with your profile. And what I mean by profile, I'm talking about the banner, I'm talking about the about section, I'm talking about everything that's in there. You what's going to happen is LinkedIn has an agreement with Google that if you kind of put in a bunch of information on your page, you're going to rank on Google. It doesn't cost anything, it doesn't do anything, it just simply happens. Well,
Hmm.
if somebody's going to meet you, they're going to Google you first. That's a
Right.
given. So
Hmm.
if you can control what that person sees initially, why wouldn't you do it? And so think of LinkedIn not as your resume so much as your existing digital profile online. It's what tells you about people because people are going to read it. They're going to read the recommendations. They're going to read what you said. They're going to look at your links. They're going to do all these things. So spend some time with the profile. That's my first piece. The second piece I have is about the sales process, right? So if I link to you and you and I link, and then the first thing I send you is, "Hey, Andrea, thanks for linking to me. By the way, do you want to buy this, or this, or do you want to sell this or this or this?" What's your response going to be? Dude, why did I just connect with you? Unconnect, block, don't respond, whatever it is. It's not, nothing good comes from that.
Right.
The way I describe it to people when I teach a class is I say, think about it this way. If you went out on a blind date that one of your friends suggested that you go out on a blind date and you go meet this person and you sit down and you say, "Hi, I'm Jarred," and they introduce themselves. And the first thing they say is, "You want to get married?" Right? You at this point you completely flip out. You're like looking at your phone going, "How do I get this thing to ring so that I can get out of this thing and run as far away from possible?" But that's what people do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so my advice to people when you connect on LinkedIn, if you can have a conversation and say, "Look, let me tell you about, if you want me to tell you about what I do, that's fine." But the way that I generally approach people is I say, "Look, if you want to connect on LinkedIn, that's great. I'd like to give you some information about, and not necessarily about me so much as it's information about here's how I can help you.
Hmm.
And if you want to go beyond that, great. And if you
Hmm.
don't, that's okay too. But it's not a direct sales pitch in that moment, and it shouldn't be, and you shouldn't think of it that way. And so, like, for example, on my LinkedIn profile, I if you look on my LinkedIn profile, it says, join my newsletter. Well, I have 3 of them. And
Mm-hmm.
so you join my newsletter because that way you'll get to know who I am. You'll get to know what I'm about.
Mm-hmm.
Or it says, go check out this site because now I'm launching a new site for lead generation. Because let's face it, everybody needs leads. Everybody needs leads from LinkedIn. Nobody knows how to do it. And so rather, I could take one of 2 approaches to this. I could take the approach of send me $50 and I'll teach you how to do what it is you need to know how to do. I don't like that approach. That doesn't feel genuine to me. And so rather what I do is I say, look, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the web address for a website that says this is what I do for lead gen. And I basically tell you all about what I do, and I have a little button at the bottom that says if you want more information, sign up and I will send you a free lead generation thing that you can use today to get business.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm simply
Right.
telling you I'm going to provide you with advice. Now, once that happens and you start getting the emails, then the emails will contain more information about how I can help you and what you can do and how you can do it. And by the time we're at like email 10 or 11, I might ask you, I might say, hey, by the way, I do this regularly. Would you like to do this? Great. But I've already established a relationship with you where I've already said, let me give you some free stuff. Let me tell you how I can do it. Let me give you a benefit before I get to saying, let me ask you for something. And that's the thing that drives me absolutely nuts on LinkedIn is people will send me a message and they say, and the problem is it's always the same message.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
hope this finds you well. And that's an immediate response that you're using ChatGPT to do
Right.
something. So
Right.
I already know just from what I do that you're not actually talking to me.
Right. Right.
And so I tell people, it's like, look, if you want to build a relationship, think about how you built your friendships. It
Mm-hmm.
probably started with something, right? Like it started with some element of something that you had in common and built from there. This is how you do that. You start by saying, let me help you. This is what I can give you. And so for agents, I tell them this, you guys have all kinds of information about neighborhoods. You know all about the city. You know all about the state, whatever it is, whatever your specialty is, you know about this. Write something,
Yeah.
put it in writing and say, this is what I do and this is how I can help you. And then that's what you send your clients.
Right.
The case in point, if somebody wants to talk to me, I say, look, here's my book. And by the way, I have a free chapter or I have this or I have that. Great. We're going to do this, but I'm going to give you something before I'm going to ask for something because I haven't earned the right to
Right.
ask you for anything.
I actually don't ever ask for anything on LinkedIn. If you looked at my stuff, you'll see I post articles there. I post things I'm interested in there, and,
right,
and usually they're going to have something that I think is of benefit to the person that might watch it or listen to it or read it on the other side.
right.
That's kind of what I do.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm stopping one step short by not asking for business from them,
Yeah.
but it's okay for the time being.
Well, and the thing is that just that little tweak,
Hmm.
because you don't have to do, I mean, the thing is you don't have to be a hard sell.
Hmm.
It's simply just a matter of adding a line of if there's anything I can do to help you,
Right.
let me know. I mean, that's a sales pitch. Nobody sees it that way, but
Right.
that's what it
Exactly.
is. Yeah.
Exactly. Anybody who starts out saying, my program of blah, 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 you just tune out
Right.
immediately.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've been just incredible. You're a wonderful guest. I think that people have probably gotten a lot out of this today, and I really thank you for your time. We went actually over a half an hour, and I appreciate the extra time so, so very much. And Jarred, if someone wants to buy your book, where can they find it?
They can find it on Amazon. So it is literally just type in, you just find my name. And so I'll just hold this up here. And so it's Jarred Talmadge. And you can just type in the LinkedIn real estate agent. There is a version of this called the LinkedIn salesperson, which is for people in general, if you're interested. And then I also have a site that I just launched that if they want information about how to actually generate leads, because that's the big thing that most people don't understand about LinkedIn is I've written actually about 50 different ways that you can use LinkedIn for free. So I'm not talking about the
Right.
paid package or anything. This is the basic package. And so I give that away. And so that's you can find that at my website, which is leadgenerationpreview.com. leadgenerationpreview.com, just all written out. You don't need the www, you don't need the HTTP, just leadgenerationpreview.com. That will tell you about what I do, and that will offer you up a free newsletter that tells you all about, how you can do it. And I give away a free strategy about how to build business with LinkedIn, because ultimately at the end of the day, if you can't do business with LinkedIn, what's the point of being there?
Yeah, absolutely. You're wonderful. Thank you so very, very much. All right. So that does it for us today. Thanks so very much for listening, everybody. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Realizations Podcast. I hope our conversation has shed light on the true essence of real estate and the people behind it. As we wrap up, I want to extend my gratitude to our listeners for their support and engagement. Your feedback drives the heart of this podcast, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Realizations Podcast and leaving a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our message of positivity in the real estate industry. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind, embrace empathy, and always seek the good in every situation. I'm Andrea Gordon, signing off from Realizations. See you next time.